Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, wherever you're zooming in from. You are tuning into your very first NATRI Annual Performance Reporting webinar. I see folks are still joining in and getting connected to audio. If you all are able to, please just let us know where you're zooming in from. I see some new faces and some old faces. It's happy to have you guys all here. So before we begin, I do want to review our disclaimer.
This presentation was produced under U.S. Department of Education contract number GS00F115CA with Synergy Enterprises, Inc. The views expressed herein do not necessarily represent the positions or policies of the U.S. Department of Education. No official endorsement by the U.S. Department of Education of any product, commodity, service, or enterprise mentioned herein is intended or should be inferred.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. I see that you guys are all in the chat. I wanted to just do a little housekeeping today. Please make sure that you're able to chat in the chat box, unmute if you have any questions at all throughout this webinar. We will be unpacking a lot of information, and we'll be dropping forms and checklists throughout the webinar today. So at any point you feel as though we're going too fast or things aren't explained enough, please stop us, because we want to make sure you have a really great reporting experience for your first year. And so just wanted to introduce your program officer, Donna, and Donna's here with us today. And then myself as your TA team. We also have our amazing TA team on the chat in the webinar today as well, who will be answering your questions. We're going to be going through the components of your APR. And so just as just a visual reminder, you have your cover sheet and executive summary. You have your section A, section B, and your section C. And then we'll wrap up with some reminders as well. And so just to begin today, I just wanted to put this in your minds and to put this date on your calendar. You may want to write it down in a sticky note, put it as an alarm in your phone, write it on your fridge, on your bathroom mirror. But the due date is going to be April 26th. And I wanted everyone to look at the timestamp. The the system is very strict with deadlines. And as you can see, the deadline is going to be at 4:30 Eastern time. And after this time, the system will close. And so we just wanted to, and we'll remind you throughout the entire webinar that this will be Eastern time. So please make sure that if you're not in the Eastern time zone, to please know and be sure of that time change wherever you are, whether you're 1 hour behind, 3 hours behind, excuse me, and just make sure that you have that as well. So we also wanted to give you a timeline for your APRs. And so G6 is open for you to begin that. But we also wanted to make sure that you know that your grant year ends September 30th. And we will also be back for another APR update on October 24th. But between now and your due date, you have access to us, your TA team, and your program officer. And we're here and we're available to meet with you, answer your questions, provide the support you need to complete all of your APRs on time. So I highly suggest that if this is your first time, any new project directors that are here with us, we really encourage you to take advantage of our coaching call links that we'll share at the end of our webinar today. So you can have that one-on-one time with us, get to know the ins and outs of the APRs, the do's and don'ts, in which we'll share today as well. And so just to go over the purpose of the APR is a federal grant requirement, and it is the primary document submitted annually that allows you to document your progress towards your GEPRA measure and your project objectives. And your program officers will also use this to determine progress and continuation awards. So it's really important that you get these in on time, because and we'll discuss this later in the webinar as well, any delay in you submitting your APR will then delay your continuation award. So it's really important that you get all of your materials in before the deadline. So now that we've kind of gone over that context, we want to jump into the many components of our APR. So the first form that we are going to drop in for you is the APR checklist. And it's a tool to help you ensure that you are, checking in all the boxes, you're filling out all the spaces, you're putting in the numbers that you need to. And we highly encourage you to go ahead and download it now. So as we go through the components in the webinar today, you can see the lines and the boxes that we're talking about, and you can become familiar with the steps. And we also have in the chat, words today. We have also given you the Padlet link. For those that have joined us in our past talking circles, you know that we have done a lot of breakout rooms and things in Padlet. So I have uploaded your forms in Padlet and they will be red. So they'll stand out. And those are the forms. If you cannot catch them today in the chat, they'll be on your Padlet. So for those in the room that have other grants, that have other experiences in other organizations in reporting, fortunately for you all, you have one GEPRA measure to report on. And we'll go over exactly how to report this later, but just remember that when you go into your Section A, you'll see just your one GEPRA measure, and your GEPRA measure will be the total number of Native American educators employed as educators at the beginning of the grant period who are still educators at the end of the performance period. So how are we going to upload your APR? What do we need to do? So those in the room that have had experience with the G5 system, G6 is the same website, the same destination as G5. It's just through updates and transitions, you will now hear us refer to it as G6. But it is the same login information. It is the same reporting styles. It's basically everything's the same. It's just now it's called G6. So if you hear us say G5, G6, please know that they are one. And so this is the landing page for your G6 system where you submit your APR. Just a few things just to throw out there. We want you to kind of be aware of the scheduling. Sometimes the system is closed for updates and maintenance. And so we highly, highly recommend you right now in a separate tab as you're listening to us talk about APRs, please make sure that you are able to log in and you're able to navigate the system, because we want to make sure, again, that you submit your APRs, but you can't do that if you cannot get into your G6. We also wanted to note that the help desk information and options for reaching the help desk, we have posted them in the chat. Please reach out to them. They are a great ally, and they are really, really great at helping our grantees. And we also just wanted to be sure, please note the time zones that are on the website that are on your screens as well. And so just a pro tip that we like to always tell our grantees is the note that sometimes the system can kind of be tricky and can time you out. If you aren't active on the website for a certain amount of time, it will log you out, it will kick you out. And so one thing that we love to tell our grantees is to gather the information you need first, and then type it into the system and submit it. And so we wanted to just kind of highlight exactly where you will go to log in. So when you go into the system, you'll see the box at the very bottom. And then you will have to go through this first login you see right here to log into your G6. And again, like I said, we are going to remind you throughout this webinar to please make sure that that is still an option for you. We want to make sure that you have all the resources to be successful in this reporting period. So throughout this webinar, we will post documents in the chat, but if if you just want to listen, write notes, you don't really want to, have to worry about downloading everything. We also are going to drop a link to access these forms online. They'll be online, they'll be in your Padlet. We will also be sending out reminders to you all as well. So there are many points of access for your forms. And so these are the forms that you will be reporting for your APR, and your 524 reporting forms are the documents you need for your APR. And so while there may be other documents or other pages or ways you want to report your information, please note that you have to have these mandatory forms for your APR. We also just wanted to be sure that the expiration date, which you can see here at the top of your form, please check that date. The date should read July 31st, 2024. And if you're unsure about the form, you can always visit the link that we have on the screen and in the chat to obtain the most up-to-date copy. And so today we're going to walk through each of the sections line by line from the cover sheet all the way to section C. Today we want to highlight the important parts and just have some helpful reminders and tips. And we're also going to have a fun quiz time to make sure that we are all gathering the information, and and there's no one left behind with any questions. So to begin, the first thing you are going to be sure to complete is your cover sheet. And we will drop all these in the chat. So this is a screenshot of your cover sheet, and you will need a new cover sheet for every single APR that you submit. Again, we want to make sure that you are checking the upper right-hand corner to be sure that it is the date, it is the new date, and it is not an old APR. And so number one, we want you to make sure you're including your full your full award number on your APR cover sheet. This is really helpful for those that have multiple grants in the room. Be sure that you are submitting the correct NATRI award number. And then moving on to item number 7, we want you to include the correct reporting period that you see on the screen. So you're going to be reporting from October 1st, 2023 to the last day in March 31st. And then the next portion that you will be filling out is number 8. So number 8, you will see, has 3 areas that you will have the option to document and write stuff in. So number 8 is about budget periods, and like I said, there are 3 line items. For you all, 8A will be left blank, and we will go through more of this in a couple of slides. 8B is going to be the total expenditures but in the reporting period, so from October 1st all the way to March 31st. And then again, 8C will be left blank because you will not be using that at this time, because we are year 1 grantees. A lot of the information that you will be placing in item 8 lines will grow as your grant years grow. So number 9 on your APR, be sure that you're entering the most up-to-date indirect cost information. And we highly suggest, if you do not know that information today after the webinar, please contact your finance office for that information. We don't want a little piece of information stop you from being able to submit your APRs on time. Sometimes these numbers do expire, or other details may change. So we just want to make sure you have the most up-to-date information. Please do not skip it and fill it out as appropriate. In number 10, you will check non-applicable. And then in number 11, as you see on the screen, it is the last one on the page, and it's very important, and it's about data privacy. Everyone will check yes, and also include the corresponding policy. It's really important that we make sure that all of these are checked off. And if you have any questions about the policies, about even line number 9, please reach out to us. We want to make sure that we are giving you really great information and direction about these cover sheets, being that it is our first time together. So as I mentioned before, we're just going to break down number 8 a little bit more because it can be a little tricky. And so these amounts should reflect what you have actually spent and drawn down, and it should match exactly what has been drawn down in G6 as of the reporting end date period. So because it is your first year, 8A will remain blank. 8B, all of the grantees will have to report what has been spent down from October 1st to the last day of March. The reason why you are leaving 8A blank is because it is your first year. We don't have a previous budget period. Now, next year, you will have numbers and information to fill in 8A, but for 8A right now, you will leave blank. 8B is where you, like I said, you will reflect what has actually been spent and will reflect what's in G6. Now, 8C, all grantees will leave this blank. Are there any questions about this piece of information about the budget on your cover sheet? And so moving on to the back of your cover sheet, please be sure that you do pay attention to 2 important details here on the back of your cover sheet. And I'm going to highlight the first one. So item number 12 is about performance measure status. So in 12A, in your annual performance report, you will be indicating yes or no for the question about complete data for your performance measures. If you click yes, then you're stating that you have all the data needed to fully report on your project measures. That means that whatever project measure that you have, that you are able to obtain all the data by the end of the reporting period. But if you click no, then you're telling us that you do not have the data right now. It's currently unavailable. You're going to get it at a date after the reporting period, maybe in the summer, maybe in August. So you will click no. And so I also wanted just to make sure that you and if you do click no, it's going to ask you when the data will be available. But we just want to make sure that the data must be available by the end of the grant period, which is September 30th, 2024. And then that's when in October, you will submit your APR update to update any missing data. And we'll go through that section as well. And that's going to be in section A. And lastly, finally, we want to make sure that you have the signature of your authorized representative. If that has changed, we want you to be sure to update your program officer immediately. We want you to know to be sure to let your authorized representative know to expect this form because their signature is needed, and you want to be sure that your cover sheet will not be complete without this signature. So you must sign it, upload it, and also email it to your program officer. And then right here on your cover sheet is where they will sign and date and where you will scan it in and send it to your program officer. Are there
Yeah.
any questions? Oh, yes, Don is here.
Yeah, Doris, this can be uploaded to straight in with NG5. But if you can't put that in G5, you can email it to me. But it has to be your authorized representative on record. Whoever is that authorized rep that is on record in G5, it cannot be you, the project director, signing this. I will send it back and it will be incomplete until it is whoever the authorized rep is of your grant that's on record. If it is, I did have a couple, and I don't remember if it's here in YCP, that was still had the project director and the authorized rep or CO the same. It was the project director. So if that is you, please check and find a different person to be an authorized rep as soon as you can. And email all that information to me, just the name and the contact information.
Thank you. So now that we have gone through our cover sheet, you know, the beginning part, part number 1 of our APR, we're going to hop over to quiz time to see if we are all paying attention and still with us here today. And that is going to be from Olani.
Hi, guys. Good morning, everyone, or good day. Let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so we have 2 questions, and you're going to notice that both of these questions are focusing on item number 12. Why is that? Because what we find as we review a lot of times the cover sheet, this item really sometimes stumps grantees, and so we wanted to make sure that we are providing you with the opportunity to sort of think through these scenarios and then make your choice so that you'll make the right selection when you do your APR. So here's a poll that's popping up. Let's look at the scenario. The scenario reads, the project measure, 50% of students will increase their reading proficiency by at least 5 points using reading comprehension assessments. That's just a scenario, an example. Now, here's some key pieces of information that will help you to answer this question. Beginning of the year, the assessments were given in September 2023. The final assessments will be given in May 2024. So for this APR, what should you indicate, yes or no, for item number 12 on the cover sheet? Okay, you can go ahead and put that in. Oh, you guys are like working it. You're on it. So is it yes or no? Okay, it looks like everybody said no, and you'd be correct. No, and why is that? Because your data is not available yet. It will be available, and you can submit that in your APR update, but you're not finished with your final assessment until May 2024. So awesome. Good job, guys. Okay, moving on to the next question. All right, so here is our pretend scenario. So again, we're dealing with a project measure. 90% of teachers will remain and teach the following year. So the year ends in June 2024, and next school year doesn't start until September 2024. So what will you be completing for item number 12? Yes or no? Again, you guys are so super speedy. Okay, I think we have everybody's responses in. And so, again, the correct answer would be no. Awesome. And why is that? It's because the data won't be available until September 2024. And that is outside of this current APR reporting period. So awesome job, you guys.
All right, and then I have a few handy dandy tips that we will be sprinkling throughout the day for you. So when it comes to your cover sheet, the first tip is as soon as you're done with this webinar, maybe even while you're on the webinar, send an email to your budget office and let them know that you need your G5, G6 drawdown report on April 1st. That way, they already know in advance what you need, and you aren't waiting on it when you're trying to complete this cover sheet and the rest of your reporting. So go ahead and give them a heads up now. Second tip is the authorized representative signature is often the thing that delays turning in the report. You don't want to be waiting on a signature and turn in your report late just because you didn't have the signature yet. So go ahead and as soon as you can complete this cover sheet, get that drawdown report, fill it out, and then get it off to your authorized representative for signature ASAP so that you're not waiting on that later. And then finally, even if you think your indirect cost rate is totally fine, just double check. Double check and make sure that it has not expired and that you've given Donna your up-to-date paperwork. That's your tips for the cover sheet.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alani and Sarah. Now, are there any questions about the cover sheet today that maybe we can talk more about and dive deeper into before we move on to our next portion? Okay, I don't see any mics unmuting. But just a reminder, at any time that there is a question or something you want us to go back and talk about, please either come off of mute or let us know in the chat. So our next portion is going to be our executive summary. And one thing to note is when you are submitting your cover sheet and your executive summary and your APR in G6, the G6 will ask you to submit your cover sheet, upload your cover sheet, and then upload your executive summary in two separate places. You will not have to upload them all at once. Every single portion will have their own designated spot to be uploaded. And so just thank you. And yes, we have it posted in the chat as well. So just a few things just to go over for our executive summary is that you will have 1 to 2 pages to provide a detailed narrative description of your program's accomplishments and highlights. So I challenge you to think back about your project goals and your intended outcomes and describe what you guys were able to accomplish, and even what you were not able to accomplish. And this is a great opportunity to provide as to why not. Also, including what lessons were learned, what insights you gained along the way, how you were able to overcome the challenge and still accomplish your goals in another way. If your project goals and objectives were not met, we also want you to describe the challenges that affected the implementation. Maybe you had late hires or participant hardships. This is a really great place to let your program officer know exactly what has been going on in your reporting period. And then we also want to make sure that you include if your contributions in your project has made it to any research, any knowledge, any policies, any practices, some new things were able to be done because of your project and your program. We want to know that. We want to be sure that we are going on this journey along with you. Just a note that we do want to give you to carry on about the executive summary is that, and we'll talk about it in the next section called Section A, is that in Section A is going to ask you kind of for an explanation of progress. We want you to know that please do not copy and paste the narrative from Section A to your executive summary or your executive summary to Section A. These are two separate pieces of information that we are asking you. We want to know, kind of give an overview of your grant period, your reporting period, and your executive summary. This is a great time for us to kind of have a snapshot, learn your story, know what's been going on, how have you've learned, what are some new things you're going to do later. This is a really great time for you and your program officer to share that together as well. And so this was a really quick executive summary session because now Olani is back for another quiz time.
I'm back. Okay, here we go. So we have 2 questions for our quiz time. You move to that first slide. Thank you. Okay, so here's the question, and this should be popping up in your poll. So how many pages should the executive summary be? Should it be about a half a page, but no more than 1? Or B, at least 1 page, but no more than 2 pages? And C, no more than 3 pages? All right. You guys are going awesome. Great participation. Thank you. Okay, so the correct answer is it should be B, at least 1 page, but not more than 2 pages. Another helpful hint is that maybe some of our grantees, they complete their Section A, and then they go back and from a bird's eye view, write their executive summary. So awesome, good job, you guys. All right, let's look at the next question. Okay, so here's the scenario. You missed one of your targets for a project measure. Which of the following actions do you take in the executive summary? A, write 999 because you need more data. Oh, I'm sorry, wait, there's different answers. So either it would be B, share the challenges meeting the project measure, but do not go into detail because you can do that later in another part of the report. Or C, discuss the project measure, progress towards it, and include a brief rationale for why you missed the targets. All right, you guys are completing that session. I know in the poll, A says, don't talk about the challenges. All righty. Let's take a look at what we've got. All right, so let's see what the correct answer is.
I'm sorry, it's not
There you go.
linked.
It's
It
not
didn't.
bringing.
Here we
There you
go.
go. So it should be B. Share the challenges meeting the project measure, but do not go into detail because you can do that later in the project. And that's really why B is the correct answer, because again, you want to bring it up, but you're going to have other places within your APR report where you can really dive into the detail around the challenges. And so great job, you guys.
And now for your executive summary top tips. So our first top tip is to stick to the 2-page limit, because if you have more than that, you have other options. You can put all of that extra information that doesn't really fit in there into your section C. So you're not really limited. You're just limited to what's going to be in the official executive summary. Secondly, as was mentioned before, don't just repeat the information from section A. We're reading through this in the order in which you see it in the slide deck here. And so as your program officer and other readers are reading through your APR, they don't want to read the same thing over and over and over. Make sure that you're using your executive summary as that introduction, and then your section A is that detailed piece. And finally, I think the best tip in writing your executive summary is to really think about, if someone asked you, how did the first 6 months of your project go so far? What would you tell them? So imagine that you're sitting down with Donna to have a coffee and you're just catching up and letting her know both the good and the not so good so far in this first 6 months of your grant. And then write it out in your executive summary. And then on we go.
Awesome, thank you. Any questions about our executive summary today? Okay. So moving on to our next portion of our APR is your section A. Your section A form will be in your chat. It'll be in your Padlet as well. But section A is our favorite part, because this is where we get to see the data. And if you're into data, like I am, love it. I love absolutely learning about you guys' progress, about the great things that you are doing. It's our favorite part as well. So section A contains the bulk of the information that you will submit in your APR. And the purpose of our section A project status charts is to demonstrate the progress that your project has made towards the approved project objectives in your grant application and your planner. And so in this section, you will provide both quantitative information and qualitative information about progress towards your objective. And so I just want to go through the types of and the several components of your section A that you will complete. And so the first portion that we will ask you to complete is that you see with this red oval. First, we're asking you which type are you reporting on, and you will see it draw down. You will see GEPRA or you will see project. And to my knowledge, your GEPRA measures are going to be pre-populated, whereas your project measures will not be. So your GEPRA measure will already be typed in there for you, and all you have to do is just complete the actual data. Whereas your project, yes, your project measure, you will have to type that out, and it'll have to be the exact wording that you have in your grant proposals, in the planners as well that we have given you at your Grant Leadership Academy. And the next component that you will have is, again, the performance measure. This is where you will type it out and you'll see that in the box as well. And then next is the quantitative data. So you will see that you have target and then you also have actual data next to it. And so we will be asking you to enter in these data points as well. And so this will be your quantitative data. And then below, you'll see in next slides to come, it'll ask for your explanation of progress. And that is where we talked about before, just giving us more detail as to maybe why the project measure is not obtainable at this moment, or the data isn't available, talking about the different challenges you may have had completing this measure as well. And so just to give you an example of what it will look like, just a few important reminders about your GEPR measure, just your one GEPR measure, is that it will already be in there. And they're already defined, and we went over what our GEPR measure will be, and we'll go over exactly how you're going to report that. And so we use the exact wording, and you don't have to worry about typing it in as well. We just want to make sure that you have it labeled under the right measure type right here, that it says GEPR when you go in and you begin to write in your data. And so we always encourage our grantees to fill out the ratio portion. That way that it is easier to compute. You don't have to worry about turning it into percentages, that it'll be right there for you. And then next we will have you, this is what your project measure text will look like, what your measure type would look like, and here is what you're gonna be putting in as well. So we're asking you to report on your targets, but also your actual as well. And so we're just going to go over exactly how you're going to reporting that GEPR measure. And so as you can see, as I said earlier, that we're going to ask you to the best way to report is in the ratio. And so the bottom number will be 1. And you'll be reporting the total number of educators still employed on September 30th, 2021. And so, like we mentioned before, we may not have that data. So we're going to show you exactly how to report any data that may not be available just yet. But this is how you will see your GEPR measure reported. This is not how your project measures will be. This is only for your GEPR. And so we're just going to go through how Section A will look like step by step as you are going through filling it out. And so first you will see that GEPR is popping up, and then your GEPR measure will be in the text box. And for your GEPR, you do not enter a target ratio for GEPR and no raw numbers, only an actual ratio. And you will enter that in the way that we have seen here. The bottom number will be 1, and the top number will be the number that you have still employed on September 30th. And then as you can see, right at the end of every single measure, you will have space to type in your explanation of progress. We've learned yesterday that the character limit is 4,000 characters. So you have a lot of opportunity and space here to really go into detail and to let your program officer know and sharing your story about how the first 6 months of this one of your GEPR measure has been. And we will also go through exactly what that will look like in a couple of slides as well. But this is how you do your GEPR measure. We just want to highlight that you will not be worrying about your target. You will only be filling in your actual performance data in the format that we shared earlier. And so what if you don't have the complete data just yet? What does that look like? And so we ask that you fill in the ratio 999. And what that means is that that allows us those reading your APR that they will have the data, but right now 999, they don't have it yet. And so that is a great indicator for us to know that they will be submitting an APR update in October. And so just moving on to our project measures and how that looks like. And so taking on the example we had in the cover sheet, and the example is going to be 50% of students will be increasing their reading proficiency by at least 5 points using the reading comprehension assessments. And so this is how you would write it out and indicate it. And so being sure that you write in the exact objective you had from your project planner. This is really, really important that you have the same objectives from your proposals. And so you are also going to make sure that you have clicked your project measure, not your GEPR. We are indicating that you are now reporting on your project measure. And you will also be reporting on your ratios as well. And so say, for example, you had a target of, you have 210 students and you want at least 50% of your students to be increasing their reading proficiency. So in your ratio, your target, you would put 105 over 210. But say, for example, that you were able to gain the data and you reported the data and you have 70 students that you were able to collect that data on over 210. And so this is how you would report it in your ratios. And again, below in your explanation of progress, here's where you explain those ratios and what the numbers represent. We also would ask for you to talk about how you collected the data, maybe some obstacles and challenges on how come you were unable to meet the full 50%. And so this is, again, how you would report it. And again, everyone has different project objectives. So if there is any hesitation or you may want to talk with us on how to report these or what it may look like in terms of your project, always reach out to Donna, reach out to your TA team, and we can help you as well as you're walking through your APR. And so just a little few reminders is that you will be reporting on the current reporting period seen above as well. And the purpose of your project status chart is to demonstrate the project of your NATRI grant. And so we just want to make sure that you are only reporting on the dates that you see above. Any data that is unavailable, you will denote with 999. And if the data will not be available or exist by the last day of your grant period, you'll report a 0 or a 0 over 1. And so you will only use 0 if that measure will not exist for this year. And so just kind of going over another example, what it may look like. And so say this is hypothetical project measure as well. 75% of teachers will integrate culturally based instruction as measured by an observation rubric before the end of the school year. And so again, you will be placing your measure in here. And I just included 2 different ways that you will be able to meet or report your goals. And so maybe 35 out of the 50 teachers that you have accomplished this goal. But to meet this goal, you needed 37 teachers to complete this goal. And so right here, you see your target ratio. You wanted 75% of the teachers, but you had 70% of the teachers, no 35 of the teachers that were able to meet this goal. And so here's just another example of how to report your measures in different ways to get your data inside your tables. So here's just a little bit of further details about your Project A status chart. When you are writing your explanation of progress, you will want to include both quantitative and qualitative data that gives your program officer and readers insight. Like we said before about goals that were met, maybe some goals that weren't met. We want to see any background information, context, any challenges that you were that you were faced with. We also want you just a reminder that we gave before, please do not copy and paste these in your executive summary. Don't paste your executive summary in your section A, because this is where you will need to describe the ratios you're measuring, how you collected the data to report on these measures, maybe even the frequency of your data tracking or collection, maybe describing the measurement tools that you used in your data collection window, explaining the methods you used and how your data was analyzed, and also briefly describing relating any activities and accomplishments. Again, this explanation should be different from your executive summary. So just moving on to some look-fors, the explanation provides details about the reported ratios. It may be really helpful to state clearly for what do your numbers represent as well. It really gives us provides a great detail about your data. One pro tip from your program officer is that maybe be sure to link each measure. It's really helpful for your program officers when you're reporting your data that you are linking. And when I say by linking, say you have one project to measure, but you have 1A, 1B. We've seen in a lot of your planners that you have many project measures. So when you're talking about these measures in your APR, it would be really helpful to kind of denote which one you're talking about. So that will help not only you to be able to explain and talk about the great things you're doing, but also help your program officer to keep track and to be able to link which ones that you're talking about. And then again, we also want to be sure that the details and the data and how the data is collected, that sometimes is often overlooked in reporting. So just make sure that you are explaining how your data is collected and compiled for your reporting as well. And so moving on to our quiz time to really dig deeper into section A and just making sure we are all understanding how to report our numbers today.
Awesome, awesome. So again, our first question. So here is our scenario, and the poll should be popping up. 100% of teacher participants, sorry, in year 1 will remain teachers in year 2. Should the grantee indicate 999 or 0/1 into the project status chart? So you can go, all righty, you guys are on it. Okay, all right, so we have most of you selecting 999 and some 0/1. So let's go ahead and see what the correct answer is. It is 999. And why is that? That's really because right now you don't have the information or the data that you need, and that it will be coming primarily but you anticipate, sorry, in getting that data collected by the end of the grant year. And so therefore you would report 999. Okay. All right, next question. Thank you. So here again is our question. Now I want to key in on the question really is, which is not a good tip for writing your explanation of progress? Again, the key word is not. Is it 1, keep your response brief and to the point? The second one, tell the story behind your quantitative data. The third, use section C for any information that won't fit in the box in your explanation of progress. Or the final one, make sure to include an explanation of progress for all measures, even those with no data currently. All right, so again, The key word is, which is not a good tip for writing your explanation of progress. Okay, let's see what the response was. All right. And so the correct response would be keep your response brief and to the point. That's not something you want to do in your explanation of progress. And like Doris just shared, there's a bunch of information you want. Even if you are putting 999 or you are reporting 0/1, which means that you don't have the data and you don't expect to have it this grant year, there should still be a very robust explanation of progress, including why you won't have that data this year, when you anticipate getting it, what the tool is you're using to be able to collect that data, who maybe even who's involved in your data collection team, and the process you utilize to both analyze and to like integrate that data into your continuous improvement of your program. Awesome. Let's move to the next slide. I can do this one. So let's say we've been talking a little bit about APR update. What is that? Okay, that is something that you would be submitting, and you have the date right there, October 24th, 2024. And this is a report, and you will only be reporting Section A, and only if you have reported 999 in this current APR. And so if you have any 99s as you're completing Section A for this APR, just know that that is the trigger for doing an APR update come October 24th, 2024. Okay, so you might want to set that date in your calendar. Again, it is only Section A, and you will be submitting this via email, okay? So it will not be submitted into the G6 system. Also, we're going to be providing way more detail and keeping you up to date on, when that's coming up and how you will be submitting that, and just going over some updated information and keeping you aware of that October 24th, 2024 APR update. And I'll turn it over to Sarah.
Because it's time for your Section A top tips. So the first one is just double check before you hit the submit button. Make sure that you've got your GEPRA and all of your project measures there in Section A. And then go back into these slides, because we're going to send you the slide deck, and make sure that you've reported them in the way in which you've been requested to report them. Second top tip is to write your explanation of progress, not in G6. Go and write it in your planner. We have an area for you to do that. Go and write it in a Word document, but write it somewhere outside of G6 for two reasons. One, G6 doesn't have a spelling and grammar check. And so it's really easy to make typos or accidentally write something that you don't mean to, because it has no alert for you. And secondly, it doesn't save your work as you're working, and it is notorious for timing out. And so you're there, you're writing this beautiful explanation of progress, and then it times out and it eats all of your hard work, and you will be very sad. However, if you wrote it outside of G6, you don't have to be sad. You just go copy and paste it back in and move on with your day. So it really just saves you on two fronts. And then finally, don't slack on the explanation of progress. This is the one time of year that you have like a formal opportunity to brag on your program, to tell the story of your program. So make sure and take this opportunity to tell the whole story. We don't want to see the little sad one-sentence explanations of progress. Robust. That's the key word. Robust explanations of progress. And then let's see, I believe Donna also has a fourth bonus top tip for you.
On your GEPRA, make sure that whenever you're filling out that GEPRA data, you just have the one GEPRA data, that it's, as they said, if you don't have your total number of your Native American teachers that you served for the entire grant year, just this grant year, the year ends September 30th, then you'll put the 999. But if it's 0, if you haven't served any teachers this year and you're not really planning to on the summer or anything like that, then it's going to be 0. If you claim the invitational priority, we need a number because the invitational priority is set to that you're serving Native American federally recognized teachers. So that's a definite, you'd have to have a definite priority. If you don't know if you claim that or not, look back at your grant application. And the biggest thing with your explanation of progress, that's your qualitative data. Like Sarah and everyone has said, make sure it supports your quantitative data. That's the biggest key. That qualitative should support that quantitative.
Awesome, thank you so much. Are there any questions about section A on how to report your GEPRA, target versus actual? If questions come up, please feel free to stop us and let us know how we can best help you understand or maybe just go over some slides. So moving on to section B, and I remember this quite well because it's B for budget. And so we're going to continue to walk through a reporting form just to go over our section B information. So this is a section where you will provide a narrative of your spending for the entire for the grant period you're reporting on. So this section should expand as you type into the form, by the way. Ideally, we want this section to be organized by budget category, and we will show a screenshot of what that will look like. And this will make it easier for you to be able to type in your narrative, but also for your reader to understand and kind of walk on that narrative journey with you. And again, like Sarah said, it is very helpful if you crafted this narrative in a separate document because G5, G6 doesn't really catch those errors. And so you'll have the opportunity to write it into a separate document and then copy and paste it in. And so here are just a little bit of reminders about what you'll need to be reporting on in your budget section. In your forms in section B, you should be reporting the funds expended. Even if they are not yet reflected in G6 through the last day of the reporting period. And so this is why we highly recommend maintaining your tracking of expenses as like Sarah said in the beginning. It may take a while for your fiscal office to post the expenses or the drawdown expenses, whatever the case may be. And so we highly recommend, if you don't already, to have just maybe an Excel sheet or however you document your expenses, to kind of just have a running document to make your reporting easier. We also want you to include and tell us about your drawdown frequency. Maybe if this is the case, why some drawdowns did not happen. We encourage everyone to draw down at least once per quarter. But if in any case you have not drawn down once per quarter, if there's, we want to understand maybe the situation, the remedy of the situation, how you track these in your budget office. And then also you will want to describe any challenges you faced during the pandemic, not during the pandemic, any challenges you face in your budget period, and the maybe there's some budget cuts, or had trouble hiring, or had a hard time getting some things off the ground. We want to know, your program officer wants to know, so be sure to also include that in your budget narrative. Again, just more about your budget. If spending isn't going as planned, we want to make sure that you are still indicating, maybe, for example, hypothetical situation here, you were hoping to have training sessions and professional development for your participants, but maybe you've had a really hard time finding facilitators or moderators, or guest speakers for this, and you had a chunk of your budget separated for that. Please let us know in your narrative that, you know, we had a really hard time and we have this large fund, but we intend to do X, Y, and Z to make sure that we are fulfilling our goals and objectives. We also kind of wanted to give the message that your section B in your APR by no means is a budget revision. So please don't use this as a time to inform your program officer that you are looking to reallocate funds from this a section to this section. We want to know what has been going on in your budget. And at this point, if you have spent 50% of your year funds or not. But we do want to let you know that budget revisions can be submitted at any time during the grant year. So if you need to make changes to your budget in order to successfully implement your project and expend your funds, we want you to submit a budget revision to your program officer, but please don't use your APR section B form as that, because that's a completely different form that you will have to go through. And I see that Donna came on camera to kind of just give us a more detailed explanation about your section B.
Yeah, thank you, Doris. On your section B on the budget, just like she said, you have these optional forms, and if you decide not to use that, you can use whatever form you want, but we have to have this information. You're going to plan, just like we did at the beginning of the year, to utilize every single penny of your funds up until September 30th of 2024. Now, as you're looking at your APR and you've gone through this first year of your grant, you may see that some things haven't gone according to plan. So in this budget form that we have for you, it's designed to, where you can say there may be this much money left over, which is your carryover. There may be this carryover that will be remaining that we don't think we're going to be able to use because of X, Y, or Z. Make sure you let us know what the X, Y, or Z is, not just say, because we didn't want to spend it or we're saving it. That's not allowed. But the other, it's like we just couldn't spend it due to X, Y, and Z. So this is the carryover funds that we may have for our next budget. And then kind of let us know there as well, because there is a budget narrative, how you may tie those in. And it's not like you're requesting a carryover. Your carryover is going to always be there. But it could affect your next fiscal year funding, as far as, do we reduce it because you may have way too much carryover coming in? Or do we leave it and you'll just have that carryover plus your next fiscal year funding? So your next fiscal year funding, which is what can be affected if your carryover isn't explained, why you have it. And if you have 90% of your carryover there, we're going to really ask you to explain why it's there and how you plan on utilizing it, because a whole lot of money still is really hard to spend, just as much as if you don't have as much money in your program. And it's hard either way to make these activities work. But the biggest thing is to explain why maybe there hasn't been drawdowns, or why there's it's called the large available balance still in your G5, and that's going to be considered your carryover. So if you have any questions on that, you can just email me and we can set up a meeting to talk about it.
Thank you. So I mentioned earlier about how the best way to format your section B and how to format it organized by category. And so the red oval is an example of just how it could be an example of how you may want to format your section B in the different categories, and in giving the full explanation like Donna just gave us as well. The one thing that we wanted to talk about and kind of bring to your attention is that you'll see this, the larger oval at the bottom. We are looking for, again, looking for information about your drawdowns, your fiscal staff and program staff, and what that relationship looks like to your drawdowns, to your expenditures. We want that to be in your narrative as well. So please be sure to include that however you want to include it, but just let your program officer and the readers know your frequency of drawdowns and how often you draw down and what does that look like for your project staff and for your program as well. And so just wanted to kind of reiterate what Sarah said in the chat, that any extra information can be added in section C, and we'll go over that as well. But please be sure that if there's any additional information that may not fit in your explanation of progress, your section B, that can also be added in section C as well. So we will post in a chat an optional budget reporting tool that many have used. And we provided this option to allow to make it easier for your reporting as well. And so we wanted to just give you this tool and talk more about the tool because it could be a little tricky if you haven't used the tool before, if you're a new project director. And so once you download the form, you will see on the screen that there are areas that you can type in, and then there's some areas that you may not be able to access and type in, and that's because the fields auto calculate and those cells are locked. So if you choose to use this optional budget reporting tool, please know that the areas in yellow are the areas that you will fill in: your grantee name, your award number, project director, and all of these columns right here is where you'll be able to type in, but the columns that are not highlighted, you cannot type it in. And so at any point of time you are having problems with this tool, you want to maybe need more information or help with inputting the information, maybe the form just isn't working on your end, please email us for assistance. That is what we are here for, and we would love to walk through these with you and help you along the way as you are filling out this information. And so we also wanted to, again, be sure that you are filling out the narrative, providing explanations, sentences that explain what funds are available, how you intend to use them, and how they will support your approved objectives. And I know that we went through activity like this during GLA. If you remember back a long time ago in November, where Alani led this really great budget activity where she gave you example of a budget form that had tons and tons of errors. So if you do have those papers and you remember the do's and don'ts, that will be a really great tool to pull back out and kind of go through the activity with your staff and kind of just understanding what your program officer and OIE is looking for versus what you cannot put inside your budget forms as well. So like I said before, there's justification columns and rationale. So column F is where you will provide a narrative to describe why you have the amount in column E remaining and how you plan to expend those monies during the remainder of your grant year, versus your column I, which is the intended use of the remaining funds beyond the grant. So please provide in column I details where you plan to use any of the potential carryover funds in your next grant year. And so we're going to also have a really, again, quiz time, but you'll get to see the actual column. They'll be number dated for you to kind of see exactly what columns we are looking for. But we just wanted to bring this to your attention that you are also spending time providing your narratives and explanations in your budget forms as well. So with that being said, we have another quiz time with Olani.
Awesome. Alrighty, let's move on. We've got a couple of questions, actually several questions for this section. The first one, and the poll should be popping up. There we go. So this one is just a question to see if you plan on using the optional budget reporting tool, and you can click on yes or no. No right or wrong answer. We just wanted to sort of survey you folks to see what the usage might be. Also, and the reason is because even though you may be using another form, we want to make sure that in that other format that you'll be submitting, if you're not going to be using the optional budget reporting tool, that you will be sure to provide all the information being requested in that tool. The second question, do you need a section B budget narrative if you use the optional budget reporting tool? And the next question is, do you need an optional budget reporting tool if you provide a budget B narrative? And so we can see you folks answering those questions. Doris, could we go to the next slide? Awesome. Okay, so this was the optional budget tool question that Doris had alluded to. And so really the question is, you can see all those columns, and they are identified by the alphabet A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, and I. The question here is, which one of these columns do you actually put information into? And there are multiple columns that you will be selecting. Okay. Awesome. Okay. All right, let's take a look. And so it looks like a lot of you are going to be using the optional budget tool, and so reporting tool. And so we're super happy. And remember, if you're not, you still need to make sure whatever you submit has all of the information being requested in this tool. Number two, do you need a budget? Do you need a section B budget narrative if you use the optional budget reporting tool? Yes, the correct answer is yes. You need both, which then leads us to the answer for number three. Do you need an optional budget reporting tool if you provide a section B budget narrative? Again, the answer is yes. And really, the reason why you need both is because they're providing similar but different information. Again, your budget narrative, you should be really providing exactly that, a narrative that is describing and detailing the numbers that you are putting into either your optional budget reporting tool or the format that you're going to be reporting on. And so that's why you need both. And what happens is when your program officer looks at section B, they're looking at it hand in hand. So they're looking at both the narrative as well as the actual numbers that you're submitting, whether you, again, are using the optional budget reporting tool or another tool that you want to use. Let's see. And then let's look at this last question. And you know what's interesting is that as we've been doing these APR webinars, a lot of people select A. And so I just wanted to provide some clarity. On section A, you're actually not reporting anything. You are reporting the total number for that budget category. And so you're not going to be putting down like all of your staff positions, all of the different travel. You're actually reporting that as like a whole number expenditure for that budget category. So I just wanted to clarify that. And then let's look at the other columns. Again, B, yes, C, D, that's all correct. For E, that will auto-calculate, and so you don't actually have to put anything into that column. Yes, F, you do need to provide information. Remember, again, that information is in a narrative format, and you're really providing some narrative as it relates to what's being reflected in column E. And then G, yes, you are submitting, putting your information there. H, again, you are not. That will auto-calculate. You don't need to put anything in there if you're using this form. And then I, again, is a narrative which helps explain the number being reflected in H. Again, if you are not using this form, you want to make sure that your calculations for E and H columns are correct, as well as provide space for that narrative for that you would be locating in column F and I. All righty, that's it for me. Turning it over to Sarah.
All right, so some tips for your budget section. The first one here is to make sure that you do have both items, both your narrative and the reporting tool or whatever you're using in lieu of it, because that's what's going to paint the full picture of your budget. And as Donna pointed out in the chat, it's really important that she have this budget information as she's looking at your funding for the next year. So you want to make sure that you're completing both pieces. Number two, for the folks who said that they might be submitting an alternative to the tool, totally fine, but please, please double check that it has all of the same information as the tool. That's the most common dilemma we get with alternative tools, is that it doesn't contain the same information, and then we don't have everything needed. So just make sure it does have all of that same info. And then finally, kind of hearkening back to the one from the cover sheet, in that same email that you're going to send right after this, let your budget office know what info you're going to need for this budget report and for what reporting period, the specific dates you need that info. This could take them a little extra time to pull, and you want to make sure that you're not waiting on budget info when the rest of your report is done. So please make sure and send that email right after this.
Thank you. Are there questions about budget, your budget forms? And we will also provide Donna's email in the chat and at the end if there are any questions. And so our final section today is section C. And like we said in the chat, maybe a couple of sections ago, section C is where you get to include any information that did not fit in sections A and B, or just any additional information that did not have a home elsewhere in the APR. So you might include photos or student work, maybe news clippings, accolades from other organizations that you want to include and you want us to know about the progress you have made. And so this is also a great place, like I said, to talk more about your success stories and any challenges. We also encourage you to always provide any other information about the status of your project that you weren't anticipating the outcomes, or maybe you anticipated one thing but a really great benefit and you want us to know about it. We want to be sure that we get to also celebrate your progress and your projects. You know, we get to see each other once a month, and I'm sure that there has been great progress just for the first 6 months of this new grant. So we want you to include everything, even if you feel like, oh, I'm bragging, I'm boasting, you know, I'm being too, you know, self-centered. No, this is the time for you all to really talk about the great things you're doing and your students and your teachers. And so we really encourage you to upload everything, and let your program officer know as well. And so this year we have an optional section C reporting tool that will help you gather all your important information for your program officer. So if you choose to use this tool, you can submit the same information in the section C form, or go through this optional section C tool with us as well. So I'll briefly walk through the different components, and maybe these questions will even allow you to think more about maybe some things you want to add in your section C. And so it's asking, again, please make sure you're putting your name, your project director, and your PR award number. It's really important that you are always, that you're always putting your award numbers on these forms, because it allows us to keep all your information together and in the same. So you'll also, your section C optional section C reporting tool is going to ask you to choose the grade levels that you're serving. We would then like to know the total number of students and adults served during your reporting period. And then maybe the total number and the total number of students that you're anticipating during the grant year. Again, we're asking some questions about staffing. What percentage of time does your project director devote to this grant? How many staff work full-time? How many staff work part-time? We also go to ask you to select all the times that your services are provided. Maybe you do before, during, and after school programs, or weekend, or over the holidays and summers. We want to know that as well. Are your services given in person? Are they virtual? Maybe you have tapped into the hybrid option as well. And moving on, we also ask about your methods of instruction. We want to know if you're using just any type of services that you are giving your students, if you are incorporating language and cultural activities. What does that look like? Give us more information. Any teacher leadership models that are being used in your program, we want to know as well. This is a really great time to talk about those unique models and methods that you all are using. We want to know also any evidence-based services or strategies that are using in your program. And in this section, we ask you to name the strategies and service, but also provide the research citations and references. Moving on, we also want you to list out and denote any current partners in their status, whether inactive or active at this time. A really important thing, we also, OIE wants to know about any key staff changes. If there are none, please just let us know and state no changes. But if there's maybe really drastic things that happen, we want to know that as well. Really important, because sometimes this can be overlooked as well. We want you to briefly write about the plans your program is making to sustain these program activities beyond the federal funding period as well. We would love to know about what you guys are thinking about and how you are planning on keeping these really great changes in your community. Lastly, just tell us about any changes, again, to provide activities for the remaining school year. And finally, the last two questions just require one statement responses. State your greatest success and your greatest challenge. And that is our optional C reporting tool. Any questions before we invite Olani back to go over some questions and some further understanding about section C?
I don't see any questions in the chat. So we'll jump right into the quiz time. Again, go ahead and put any questions you have in the chat. All right, so this is our last two quiz questions for this APR, and it relates to section C. So this is a true or false, and the poll should be popping up. Is section C a place where for you to put any information that does not fit in the other sections of the APR? You can go ahead and select true or false. And then I'm sure you can see the second question there in the poll as well. If you submit the section C optional reporting tool, you must also submit a section C narrative. Is that true or false? Okay. Awesome. I really want to thank you guys for participating in these polls and the quizzes. We super appreciate it. It gives us a good understanding that you guys are receiving the content that we're delivering. Okay, let's look at the results. So yes, the first question is, yes, it's true. If maybe your explanation of progress was, it was really long and you're providing a lot of great detail, and it ran out of space, you can go ahead and put that in section C. What we do really want that in that explanation of progress, or wherever you are going to continue to provide information in section C, give your program officer a little hint, like see section C for more details, or for the ongoing explanation of progress, just so that they know that they can flip there, and the remaining discussion is in section C. So that one is true. Awesome. So let's go to the second question. If you submit the section C optional reporting tool, must you also submit a section C narrative? That is false. You don't have to include a Section C narrative. However, you can. Section C optional reporting tool really provides information that is not being requested anywhere else in the APR. And so we would really appreciate you completing that. But you're not required to also submit a Section C narrative. However, you can go ahead and do that. Also, I think Doris said that you can also provide a lot of other goodies of what's going on in your organization in Section C. And I will turn it over to Sarah.
So for your Section C top tips, the first is make sure to upload everything as a PDF. G5, G6 does not really handle other types of documents real well. It wants everything to be a PDF. If you have any trouble turning your documents into a PDF, let us know and we can always help you. Next, as you look at that Section C tool, make sure and answer it completely, but also succinctly. Don't make it more work than it has to be. You'll notice some of them we really specify, like just tell us a sentence. While we do want complete information, we don't intend for it to be an essay project. So just keep it to the answers and don't make it too much extra work for yourself. And then finally, this is the first APR for many of you. So you may be thinking, what is this other info that I could pop in here? Beyond what might be extra from your executive summary or your Section A, maybe you've been in an article lately. Maybe you want to share your website or some pictures from your program. Any of those things, this is where you can share that. It's kind of that catch-all for other things that you would love for Donna to see about your program, but just don't really fit anywhere else in the report. Section C is where you can make it fit.
Awesome, thank you. Are there any questions we have not answered or gone over with you guys today regarding maybe your cover sheet, executive summary, section A, B, or C? And always at any time, please feel free to reach out to us to be there for you and help you throughout this process. So just wrapping up as we are going through, we just wanted to emphasize that the only forms that are already within G6 are the cover sheet and section A. The forms that you must upload are your signed cover sheet, your executive summary, your section B narrative and optional budget reporting tool, and your section C narrative and or your optional C tool. And so again, we just wanted you just to kind of see what is already going to be in there and what you have to upload as a PDF, like Sarah just mentioned. And just a final note, and Donna has been inferring to this, our entire webinar today is that about your continuation awards. And as we stated out, that the purpose of this webinar today and of your APR is to make sure that you are, one, you have all the information and all the resources to submit and report accurately and submit on time. But these APRs inform OIE about the progress and helps them make decisions about your continuation award. And we just really wanted you to remember us saying this, that if you do not submit on time or there's any missing information and or any substantial progress has not been made, you may experience a delay in receiving your continuation rewards. And so that this is a really great reminder that if you already do not have continuous conversations with Donna, your program officer, if you have not been informing Donna of any of the things that are going on, we highly encourage you to start making those conversations, those connections today, because the more Donna knows about your progress and your project and your intentions and what you plan on doing will make this process a lot easier once the communication is always there. So we always want you to feel free to reach out to your program officer. That that is what they're here for. They're here to help you make the best out of your time as project directors. Donna, is there anything you would like to add about the continuation awards?
Um, that's the biggest thing. To stay in contact with me. Let me know if there's any delays on on your APR end or the budget end. Don't contact me the day that it's due that there's any delays, unless there's like something that just happens that day. But if there's anything that you already see that may be uh, you know, impeding you completing that on time, let me know. And as for the carryover on the last one, your carryover is going to be there. There's no carryover request, really. It's the if you do have carryover, like I stated earlier, and you foresee that you're going to have carryover, we're going to plan, we're going to spend it all, but things happen. I've been in your shoes, and sometimes there is carryover, especially that first year. We can plan on, what we're going to do with that the next fiscal year. But if you have a large available balance, I'm going to have a lot of questions if nothing is stated in that narrative on why you have a large available balance. Getting in contact with me now, talking about why there's a large available balance. Maybe it's due to drawdowns. There was once where somebody did not have a person that was hired that did the drawdowns in the tribe, so drawdowns didn't occur. I need to know things like that. Otherwise, your next fiscal year funding, which is going to be your year 2 grant, that can be reduced. So that's what we mean when we're asking you about your carryover. But get with me as soon as possible if you have any type of questions or concerns.
Thank you so much. That was a really helpful just reminders for folks. And so we're gonna go through just some last minute reminders because we really want these to be the last things that you hear and remember about this process. And as we are going through the reminders, you should have a feedback poll on your screen. Please, please, please fill that out. That'll help us create some really great content and assistance for you all in the future. So just a reminder that your G6 should be open for reporting, and if it is not, please let your program officer know. We also want you to know that only the project director on record in G6 may submit the reporting. So that is extremely important that if you are a representative for your grant here today, if you work on the grant staff, only the project director in G6 may submit the reporting. Again, please take note of the time zone and the time date that after 4:30 on on your due date, April 26th, the G6 system will close down. And so we just want to make sure that you are being mindful of that time date. And like Sarah said, after this call, we have a few action items. Get into contact with your financial person, but also be sure you're able to get into G6 to submit your deadline. A really important another reminder that we see is that please finalize and submit your APR. Do not leave your APR in draft form. We see this a few times. We just want to make sure that you actually go in and you submit it and you see that it has been submitted. So please remember to do that as well. We are also going to post the checklist as one last form in the chat for you to have on file to go through as you're completing the section. You can go through and mark it as you are completing and uploading it. We can even get on a coaching call and go through these together as well. So please be sure that you're taking advantage of all the great resources that you have today. And so just a few reminders again, please be sure that you are filling out your feedback poll. Again and again and again, your APR due date, please note the time change. It is due on April 26th. If there are any email changes, any staff updates that you want us to know about, that you want us to add to the listserv, please email those changes and additions to oie@sciservices.com. Please be sure that you're including your name, role, and email address. But if you would like folks on your team to get communications from us, any updates, calendar invites, please be sure to let us know so we can ensure that your team and your staff are included as well. Lastly, we are going to post in our chat our email address and our Calendly link. This is a really great advantage of having virtual a TA team, is that you have access to us to have these amazing coaching calls, one-on-ones, and maybe we can set a time. And so please take a look at that link and schedule some time with us if you would like some assistance about your APR or anything regarding your grant as well. We wanted to leave you with some upcoming events and reminders. And so we have monthly office hours. So our next office hour will actually be tomorrow from 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern time. And this is a really informal time for us to come together. They are not recorded. You have access to all of your program officers and TA team members to ask those questions, get some advice from your peers, talk to each other, gain some new strategies. And so that's what our monthly office hours are for. We also wanted to let you know that we have an all-program APR talking circle on April 11th from 2 to 3:30, and that we're just going to be going over some last-minute APR tips and tricks and reminders. And so again, we will be meeting for our individual NATRI talking circles back on May 8th and August 14th. And so in the end, we just want to thank you. Thank you. I know I went a little bit over time today, but I thank you to those that stuck with us. On the screen, you will see contact information for your NATRI program officer, Donna, but also you have our websites, our content information, and also if there's anything you may need, please get in contact with us. If you are emailing us, please be sure to always include your grantee name and PR number when emailing. And yes, and as Donna said, we are in the chat, we are having a summer series session, diving deeper into the executive order. So please take a look, keep a lookout for those dates. Again, thank you for joining. For those that stuck with us, we are really excited to read your reports, and please let us know if you may need anything between now and then. Thank you guys so much. We hope you have a good day.